As of about 6:20 this morning, all of our polling locations were open. We did have one issue of someone who forgot to bring a key to one of our locations in Maricopa County, which is very typical. We also had one location in Mojave County that lost power for a short period of time, but they were also open by the time we hit 6:20 a.m. We want to make sure to mention something right off the top, and that is this. Observers inside of our vote centers and polling locations are authorized only if they are credentialed by, one, the political parties, or number two, the Department of Justice. There are no other authorized folks other than voters and the election staff who are authorized to be inside of that 75-foot line and into the polling places. And we also want to mention very briefly, we've had, as of about half an hour ago, we've had 8 calls to our office. 4 of them were for folks who were electioneering within the 75-foot line. These are complaints. The other 4 were a variety of different sorts of questions. And so I can report that as far as I know right now, everything in the state of Arizona is running about as smoothly as it could be. Ongoing tabulation of ballots will continue, and it will not stop today. As many of you know, Arizona allows, unlike some states, Arizona allows for tabulation well before Election Day. So when you see those 8 p.m. numbers tonight, many of our counties are estimating that we'll be at about 55% of our total. That will not include Election Day voters, and it will not include those voters who turned in their early ballots today or within the last day or so. We want to make sure that folks understand that all of the ballots that have been tabulated go through a pretty rigorous process, and it runs in sort of 2 stages before the ballots even get tabulated. Number 1, they get scanned and received and signature verified. Now this is a process where those folks doing the signature verification get trained by the same folks who train the FBI. It's a 27-point analysis of every single signature, and there's 3 layers of folks who actually look at each of these signatures. So that takes a while. And then they go to a series of folks in pairs who will take the envelope out of, or take the ballot out of the envelope. This is another process. And now that we have 2 pages worth of ballots here in each of those envelopes in Arizona, in 9 of our counties anyway, it's going to take a little longer for all of that to happen. So please be patient with us. We know folks want results as quickly as possible, and we leave it to the media to make your projections whenever you like, but we will have our numbers, as always, 10 to 13 days after Election Day, because we want to get it right the first time. We're not just making projections. We're actually giving you the official numbers. After the election and after we're moving forward, there will be post-election audits that the counties will run. These hand count audits and or logic and accuracy tests ensure on the backside, as well as so much of what we've done on the front side, that we've got solid integrity in our elections. Now, Arizona did lower the threshold excuse me, for recounts recently. It was 0.2% would take us to an automatic recount. In recent years, and again, I'll reiterate, without any statistical reasoning whatsoever, I think it was based on some people's feelings, we lowered that threshold to 0.5%. And what does that mean in a battleground state like Arizona? It's possible we will have to do a recount if some of these races are very close. Now, there's one in particular that has deadlines under the Electoral College Act, the ECRA, that office, if we go to a recount, we're going to have to deploy our election director and several teams around the state very quickly after the canvass so they can redo logic and accuracy tests on all of the tabulation equipment across the entire state before we can actually do the recount, because we will recertify the equipment again prior to that recount. And so, as with so many elections administrators, we hope that whatever the margins are, they're better than 0.5%, because I'm sure that nobody really wants to deal with that sort of thing, but if it happens, we are ready for it. Now, I want to make sure that folks get out there and vote. And remember, across many of our counties, and I'm speaking to our voters now, please understand you've got a 2-page long ballot, and in our biggest county, Maricopa, the average ballot has 78 different elections on those 2 pages, front and back. Please be prepared, have hopefully made your decisions before you get into that voting booth. You can bring in a piece of paper. Some folks will bring in a voter guide that they've received. You can use that just to transfer onto your actual ballot the choices that you've already studied and made. This will help the process go much more quickly. But for those people who may find themselves in line, the weather's beautiful in Metro Phoenix and I think across the state today. And so get to know your neighbors. Please exercise patience. And make sure you get up and moving once you get in there. I think we've covered just about all of the specifics that I wanted to cover. Madam Director, do you have anything particular you want to share before we go to questions?
Thank you for being here. Thank you for encouraging people to get out and vote. Do have your patience. Do bring your sample ballot. Do ask as you're standing in line if you need a sample ballot, you need a publicity pamphlet. They have plenty of supplies for you. So make your voice heard today.
Thank you so much. We'll go ahead and do questions and we'll come this direction, starting over here.
Secretary, you were saying yesterday that you were being briefed on the video that was circulating that has been suspected to be foreign misinformation. Do you have any updates on what you know about that this morning?
Well, when I told you I was being briefed on the video, I was under a little bit of a misunderstanding. The briefing was a little more broad than just that. And so because of that, I can't really talk to you too much more about that. But the parts that I did get briefed on are the same things that were put out by the FBI and sort of that joint investigative task force. That's already been made public by those folks, so you can refer to that statement. Yes, ma'am.
Thanks so much, Secretary. Elizabeth Schulze with ABC News. You mentioned 10 to 13 days. Is that the timeline you are expecting for all the votes here to be counted in Arizona this year? And what's your message to voters or candidates frustrated who might want to know a result earlier than that?
Well, 10 to 13 days is as usual, right? And that's for our official numbers. Now, if the media and the folks who do these sorts of things want to make their projections sooner, that's fine. Those are the projections from the media. Now, a lot of times people will get confused. If they hear it on the media, you know, let's say our friends at the Associated Press or any of the other outlets make a call, they think, well, that's it. Well, that's never been the official number. The official number comes from the counties to the state, and then we put that out. That takes 10 to 13 days. We'll leave it to you all to talk about the other timelines, and that's really what I want to let the voters know. We are consistent in Arizona. We have very rigorous standards with which we analyze each of the ballots that's going to go through the process. With 2-page long ballots, it could take about the far end of that and maybe a little bit more. And what I have to say about that is this. You know, if the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate had decided to work with the governor this year instead of shoving all these policy issues onto the voters and have 13 different initiatives and referenda that we'd have to deal with, I think we'd have a shorter ballot, and I think we'd get it a little quicker. So if you want to call President Peterson or Speaker Toma, let them know about your dissatisfaction for waiting too long for the results. Yes? I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Veronica with CNN. Can you provide us with any updates about statewide early vote numbers?
Statewide early vote numbers are still being compiled at this time. Early voting really is a very long and sort of a dynamic process. And when we give you numbers, we want to be exact as possible. We can come back with you later on in the day with some better estimates from across the state. But here's the thing. We really have a lot of teams that are working on a whole bunch of stuff right now. We don't want to bother them too much, but at this time, since it is election day, but we'll get you our best estimate on those numbers at our press conference later this afternoon. I think we might be scheduled for one.
And you can say that we had across the state record turnout for early voting this
Oh,
time.
yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry. You're
Yeah.
right, Director. We've had a record turnout here in Arizona, as we've seen in a lot of spaces. I think we beat 2020 already, which is a really great thing for our voters. It means that they're excited, they're participating heavily, and that's a very good thing. It's a lot of work, but it's work that we're happy to do.